Right. Can you hear me, Jake? Hi, Jake.
To be discussing a harbor management plan that's got an extensive shellfishing chapter in it.
Could you repeat that, John Dwayne? Because I just began the recording and I think that should be on it.
Sure. So tomorrow morning at 8:45 on Zoom, the Natural Resources Advisory Board will be discussing the harbor management plan, which hasn't been updated for years, and there's an extensive shellfishing chapter there.
Hmm.
And that document should be available at the town website, or I'll email it to our board.
Thank you.
I cannot go to that tomorrow. Is there anybody else on the Shellfish Advisory that could go?
It's a hard time.
I didn't pick it.
I can look into it if nobody else can.
Well, I'll be there. I'll update you. It's almost complete. It looks like we're gonna have a final product sometime maybe this month, early next month. It's technically called our 2021 Harbor Management Plan.
Shall we officially call the beginning?
Sure.
Zach. And if Zach isn't here, who is going to do the recording, the handwriting? Hello?
Yeah, I don't. I'm not the person. You don't want me to do that.
Legible. You don't do
Zach,
that.
I can take notes.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we can officially begin. I've got 6:33 here. I'm willing to wait a little longer if anyone wants to. Nope, okay. All right, so the minutes of last meeting, Zach emailed those to yesterday. Did anyone have a chance to look at them?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay. I had a look at them. They looked okay. Do we want to take a minute and look, or do we want to come back? Give Zach a chance to get on here.
He's joining now.
There he is.
Aloha.
Hey, Zach.
Oh,
Hi.
we were just starting to talk about the minutes.
Cool.
All right.
I'm ready to rock.
Okay. And will you still be taking notes tonight?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the minutes of last meeting, they looked good. Does anyone have anything to say about them?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second that.
All right. All in favor? Aye. How are we supposed to officially do that?
I think you should probably do a roll
I
call
think-
vote type thing.
I'm
Or
still,
Tom
you
says
could-
aye.
Or you could say, are there any objections? Are there any no votes? And then you can just do it by consensus.
okay, that works. Are there any no votes on this? That's a no. Okay, so everybody is in favor of it and everyone votes for it.
Yep.
Yes.
And how many of us are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
5.
5. Getting confused with past members and. Okay, so back. All right. So plastic in the harbor update.
Yeah, so
Ross, did you want me to allow you to share your screen? I can make you a co-host. I wasn't sure if you had a presentation.
well, did you guys get a chance to open the email I sent?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it is.
sent an email out to you guys, Ross's and Zeno's presentation. Hopefully you got a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So if it's easier for you guys, I mean, you can check the advisory board email and pull it up and take a look at it simultaneously. It might be the easiest way in the short term. Did most of you get a chance to check it out? I sent it a couple days ago, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw
So it worked out well. I got a chance to speak with Zeno today, actually. We're both working, and I think we're kind of on the same page. The biggest thing right now for us is to mitigate the amount of plastics that get introduced into shellfishing and to try to find new ways of permanent options as opposed to non-reusable ties, single-use ties. I think that's the biggest issue we're facing right now. So Zeno, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but we had a few ideas of, workshop options moving forward. And I think the biggest talking point is how you guys want to approach the issue. Do you want to have a plan to eliminate certain materials by a certain time? Do you want to, do a test run with a few farms, or, we're looking for some feedback from you guys to see the best way to proceed.
So definitely a test run, like we talked about this before. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's been discussed, like trying to legislate like single-use plastic out. And at least like previous boards have been very uncomfortable, like telling somebody not to use a certain method on their farm. So we kind of came to the conclusion it's more like trying to find, like what you're saying, the best option or a better option that would like almost incentivize people to do it. Maybe it's affordable and, you know, just really has to be easier or better to use than the single-use zip ties. And that's kind of like what we're looking for. So if you had an idea that we could try out on a farm, and if it works for some guys, it's kind of like a copycat thing that people would use it.
I think the biggest thing for Zeno, myself, Zeno, I don't know, you can chime in whatever you feel like, but we've been using the bungee balls out with Jim, and I've talked to guys at Walrus and Carpenter down in Rhode Island and other farms, and a lot of guys use the bungee balls. And I think the benefit of those is you can leave them on your gear. They're easy to attach to the bags. They're easy to put the bags on the racks. And I've worked with other guys who have done the zip ties. And for me, I mean, in terms of time, it's comparable, if not easier, using the bungees. But, you know, I haven't been doing it nearly as long as other guys. And I know guys get used to kind of how they do things, and they have it down to a science. But I mean, at the end of the day, if the goal is to move away from, you know, single-use options, you kind of got to say, hey, here are your options, and we can help you with A, B, and C, whether it's financially or whatever it might be, and just kind of get the ball rolling in the right direction.
I think the other thing that we talked a little bit about is kind of trying to avoid the like saying, okay, you can't use single-use plastics coming down from the top, and as an alternative option, maybe having some sort of designation for farms that do that by their own accord. And maybe that's something that could be created where they have like a sustainable or like some sort of designation that could be from the town. And that would be like an incentive to use these different methods, because it does seem from our experience that people are pretty stuck in their ways. Like it's hard to kind of get change to come, you know, unless something's way better or way more financially viable. It's the environmental push isn't as strong unless it's, you know, there's a good financial reason or some other reason.
Yeah, I agree with Zeno. I think it's, you know, it comes down to, I know everybody has different gear methods and use different types of gear. And I know we made somewhat of a distinction between the box bags and the envelope bags and closure options. But across the board, from talking to other farmers, the biggest positive that they drew from it was their approach is to work towards, in terms of strapping down bags to the gear or the racks, is to get away from the single-use options. And I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway that we had. So, if, you know, whether it's bungee balls or whether it's a new option that we give a test run, but at the end of the day, if we can eliminate the single-use materials that are being used, I think that is one big step in the right direction. And I don't know if any of you have any comments on any of the material that we had in that, you know, kind of preliminary write-up we sent out. That was just kind of, you know, we put together some items and kind of our initial reactions, and, you know, wanted to see what you guys had to say about it.
I had never seen the bungee balls before, and I liked them right away. I mean, I've used them for other things, but never on a box bag. And they look like they're pretty easy to install and like they'd last a while. And I think it's exactly right what you and Jake Puffer had mentioned, that you can't really legislate it, but the more it's around, the more people see it and get a chance to hear about it, and maybe even incentivize it by designating, like you said, Zeno. I think those are all good ideas. Giving a farm a designation as a point of pride, because I think basically everyone does want to work in that direction. And then lastly, maybe, you know, if we could get a bunch of them, If we could find some money to get a bunch of them and do like a little pilot program that could be illustrative, I think people would jump on board. And of course, you do need to keep trying them and see if there's issues. I don't know if anyone's had issues with them, but they look awesome to me.
No, I agree. I know Jim uses envelope bags, and they work great. And even when you're pitting, we were pitting today, you know, you keep them right on the bags. We're not as familiar with the box bag scenario, but, you know, based on talking to other people, I don't see a huge speed bump in terms of a transition in that respect either. And I think Zeno wrote it up in a portion of his section that said, in terms of the Wellfleet brand, having, you know, this push for green and sustainable alternatives can only bolster, you know, better revenue for these farmers in the long run. If, you know, you're selling Wellfleet oysters for more money because Wellfleet is Wellfleet, but if, you know, a big point of interest is, all right, Wellfleet's moving in the right direction, they're going sustainable, they're going green. It's like any other product that's farmed, and, you know, people are looking for that sustainable option.
Hey, this is the Zach and Jake and Becca. A while back, Ross, and I spent some time with Lydia and the recycle committee. We met a young lady on there that was from Barnstable County. She was supposed to be on this call today. I think her name's Carrie Parcell. And her and I talked after the meeting, and she has grant money for bungee cords. I checked with her again a couple of days ago, and she still has $5,000. If we want to go forward, Zach, what you were talking about, and, you know, designate some individuals, get the bungee cords for free, because if we get this $5,000 grant, and you know, create a pilot, if I can call it that, and see where it goes.
Sounds great.
The only thing I need that I think I hopefully can, I need to reach out to Nancy and Michelle at the Spat. We need a nonprofit sponsor, which I couldn't get. I tried with Spat, but I think I got them around virtual Oyster Fest, so I don't think they really read my note, but I can go back to them and see if they would support this. They don't need to do any work. They just need to support it. And let's see if we can get Kerry and the Barnstable County to approve it. And
Would the town be able to?
I don't know if
Would
the town
be able to?
I can ask her if the town can support it. I don't know if you're classified as a nonprofit, but
Right.
but if we can do that, I don't know what you guys think, and you just get some volunteers, some grants to volunteer, and let's see how it works. And, you know, you don't have to do all your stuff with bungee cords, but I don't even know what 5,000 would get us. Probably get us a lot, but.
How much do they cost? I have no idea what those things cost. Does anybody?
I can pull up a price point for you right now.
Because it seems to me that could be just like there's green, you know, I'm a realtor, I have green certification, the Wellfleet name. If everybody was using them, the town it would be another promotion for the town. And if there's money available, that would be great. Even if there's some kind of incentive the grower could get specifically from the town to cover the cost of those things.
Hey, Tom, you should get back in touch with Spat, and they were talking about getting funding for making the brand of Wellfleet oysters or Wellfleet shellfish. And this would fit right in with the branding. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
include how wonderfully environmentally friendly we are. Like they should want to support this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Beck. I think that's a great marketing ploy for the town. We get the best tasting oysters. Now we're going green.
Mhm.
You know, maybe we got, tons of followers here on the Cape and then around Massachusetts. So yeah, I'll get back to them in the next couple of days.
Have any other towns mandated the use of those things?
Not that we know of from the perspective of Zeno and myself, but we can look more into that.
Was there any reusable or more useful products around farming cohogs?
Farming
Were you
cohogs.
able to find anything biodegradable nets or anything related to the cohog farming?
I think Zeno made a point of that in his portion of the write-up.
Mhm.
And in terms of changing on that, that's one of the biggest issues is there's not a lot of alternatives for the netting. We looked into the alginate, and in terms of durability, at the end of the day, plastic for that type of material is gonna, it is what it is. But yeah, to answer your question, we haven't found anything more sustainable for clam netting. And, Zeno mentioned too, for the clam netting, it's, it's out there for a short period of time, then it gets discarded. So that's obviously a big point of concern.
Is that plastic recyclable?
No, the clam netting plastic isn't. But it's tricky too, because it's a very, and I was talking about this too, since it has such a large surface area and it does wear out more quickly. That's kind of a prime candidate for the breakdown into smaller plastic particles as well. But they're really, ideally you'd have something reusable, but that would get fouled so easily and be so heavy to be, not really feasible. And then biodegradable options, how do you determine what the time frame for biodegradation is? You don't want it to biodegrade and start breaking and have predation happen on your clams. And then there's kind of the incentive to just leave it out there too and not take it to the dump where they have that place. But when Ross and I were stripping nets and just seeing the gigantic piles of those, that kind of was definitely a big concern of ours of how to kind of tackle that problem. We haven't really come up with any great solutions.
And John, to answer your question, the price point for the bungee balls, the premium bungee balls that we'd recommend using, between $35 and $40 per 100 bungee balls.
All right, so that's 100. How many would you need to cover somebody that's got a thriving farm?
Zeno, what do you think on that?
Yeah, it's going to depend. You need on average, I think 2 or 3 per bag, depending on how you tie it down. So maybe it's really going to depend on how many oysters you're growing. I don't know what the average oyster growing operation does in Wellfleet.
One of the things that I was thinking is if you could involve a lot of people, and they would do it for, a certain number of bags. And that way everybody could get exposed to it, just make a small commitment. And then maybe that's how you get a little bit of changeover or adoption. If you could reach a lot of people with a little bit, as opposed to choosing, 5 to 10 farms that would do their entire farms. And I just want to say that I saw that Lydia had her hand up before, Becca.
Yeah, I was briefly, this is sounding great, and I was gonna just suggest that maybe reaching the manufacturer of the bungee balls to see if a donation would be a possibility as well.
How many companies make them?
I'd have to look into that. I know, talking to Jim, he said, you don't want to skimp on the manufacturer. You want to get, more the premium grade, because they're just better and they don't break down as quickly. And I think even in that respect, going back to what Lydia had to say, if the town says, hey, we're looking to put in a giant order of these bungee balls, what can you do for us in terms of price point?
not even just like a giant order, like how about like a continuing order over the years? I mean, if Wellfleet's going to be using these things as a point of branding, it seems to me a company might offer some incentives. We got to try to figure out a way to get the ball rolling with it. And whether it's a 1-year pilot project where everybody uses them for a year, you give them away free for a year and see what people think. And then we can take it from there. And that might be a good way to get the company to cut us a real break on like a big order.
Yeah, I like Lydia's idea, and as Becca said, I'll reach out to Spat, and if we can include it in the marketing storyline, this bungee board manufacturer might buy into that if they get, free advertising.
Seems like it would be pretty cost effective even without a discount at that price.
That's what if it is right now, it seems to me that that's the kind of thing that I wouldn't have a problem mandating eventually. You got to give people time to get used to it, but kind of like the idea that over the course of 3 years or so that everybody's using them. And
I think they pay for themselves too, if they're
there you go.
how long they last.
It's another marketing thing, it's we're looking out for the harbor.
And that could bode well for the company as well, the manufacturer saying, all right, we're moving in this green direction with Wellfleet, and then they can, that expands their reach to other oyster farmers, throughout the nation. And then, that can really up their marketing to this specific segment.
I just want to say thanks, and I'm looking forward to sharing the report with the recycling committee.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you for
Thanks,
coming.
Lydia.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks. All right, are we ready to move on to the Friends of the Herring River?
Thanks, you guys.
So thank
Yep.
you.
Thanks, Zeno. Thanks, Ross.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right.
I did see Barbara before.
Yeah,
Does
I'm here.
anybody have a presentation where I would need to share the screen?
I do have one, Nancy.
I have one also.
I'm gonna try to share my screen.
Hold on, I have to make you a co-host.
Oh, okay. Well,
Now I think you'll be able to share it.
let me try.
Yep.
Is that on? Can folks see that?
Yes.
Yep.
You can.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have actually 3 different studies to report that have been completed or are just about being completed. And these studies were suggested by Shellfishermen. And one is ready for reporting tonight. I don't know if John Portnoy is ready to report, but I'll let him talk about his fecal coliform study. And then Martha Craig has some information about a sediment transport study that's been done, I think, by the Woods Hole group that was also requested. And I'll let Martha explain that. But I'll go ahead with this first study. We were interested in looking at spat settlement in the Herring River estuary pre-restoration to get sort of a baseline idea of what's happening now. And this might reflect on the potential for oyster harvesting around the current dike and even upriver after the restoration. So what we did was we picked 5 locations in the harbor to do this spat study. One is at Mayo Beach at Jake Puffer's grant. Thank you, Jake, for allowing us to use your grant. Another one was at Pebbly Bar. The 3rd site was just seaward of the dike. The 4th site was landward of the dike. And then we had one upriver in this location called the Dog Leg. So those were our 3 study areas. And what we did was, oops, I have to just go to this slide where, can everyone see the spat collectors that we used? These were quarry tiles that we put into oyster bags, and we affixed them to about 10 centimeters from the bottom at these 5 sites. And I'm happy to say that we used reusable zip ties, thanks to Jim's suggestion, because we didn't want to be cutting a lot of plastic. So they were secured with reusable zip ties, so we wouldn't, be introducing more plastic into the environment. And this was the setup. Basically, 3 tiles were deployed at 2-week intervals. So this was sort of the first deployment here, these 3 tiles. And what we did was to add 3 additional tiles every 2 weeks to these bags. And this is a photo of Silas helping us with this project, opening up the bags and adding more of these tiles. And then we did this for up until August 5th, and we removed all the tiles on September 19th. And this slide basically is the summary of the results that we saw this summer. And you can see the sites here on the x-axis: Mayo Beach, Pebbly Bar, Seaward of the Dyke, Landward of the Dyke, and the Dogleg. And then the different colors reflect the dates that the tiles were deployed. So the blue bars represent the first deployment on June 22nd, the red deployment on July 6th, the green deployment on July 23rd, and then there was another deployment on August 5th, and there were no spat there, so you can't even see that purple bar. So this is sort of the result of the study. And what this basically told us is that you can see the numbers of the average spat on the tile. They weren't great. So we did see spat. There was a lot of mortality as well, but overall, there was not an impressive set of oyster spat at any site in the study. And my next slide will sort of summarize this. And what we saw was more jingle shells, those elephant toenail shells, than oyster spat on all the tiles. There was a lot of jingle shells. There was also a lot of standard deviation in the tiles at each site, which means that if we had 3 tiles deployed on a certain date, one tile might have 25 spat and another tile might have 3. So there was some issues with where exactly the tiles were set in that array that we can't explain right now. Most of the tiles settled between June 22nd and July 6th. So it was a very early set in the harbor. And this was reflected in our study, and there was no spat that settled anywhere after August 5th. I think these are summarized here. And Pebbly Bar, if you look down here on the second to last bullet, was an excellent site for spat settlement. And this is also where the Shellfish department cultures. So we were able to confirm that it's a good site for spat settlement overall. And then spat were also found landward, that is upriver of the dike, almost to the same extent that they were found just below the dike, but none were found further upriver at the Dogleg. And this Dogleg is an area that does have some saline infiltration at high tide, but is basically freshwater at low tide. So that may change as the restoration progresses. So what this study really represents is just the baseline so that we can compare how things will change as the restoration progresses. And because there is such a variability in spat settlement in Wellfleet Harbor from year to year, this one-year study isn't really a good snapshot of what's happening. So we intend to continue this for the next 2 years. And this project was partially funded by Spat and Friends of Herring River, so we want to thank them for this study. But I think it will be a good baseline to see what happens as the river is restored And I mean, we can make some predictions now, but based on this, it's clear that spat can be, it is able to set above the dike. It's just the conditions that are there and whether there's a good substrate for them that will determine if that will be a good shellfish harvesting area in the future. We also have other data that we can fold into this study. We have pH data, we have salinity data, we have temperature data. So there's still more analysis to be performed, but in general, we have a good baseline for a pre-restoration monitoring of spat settlement in the Herring River estuary. So with that, I have to figure out how to get out of this sharing. I think I can stop sharing and see. Before I do that, does anyone have any questions or want to go back to one of the slides? We're good. All right, so I'll stop sharing. That was easy. Thank you, Nancy. And I'll let John Portnoy now. Well, let me see, any questions about that spat study? Good. All right. I'll let John now take over and talk about fecal coliforms.
Okay, Nancy, I need to share a couple of slides.
Excellent.
Can I go ahead?
You should be able to do it now.
Am I at? Okay, yeah.
Okay. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Just trying to get the full screen here. Becca, how much time do I have?
We seem to have plenty of time. How much do you need?
Well, I could give you the really short 5-minute version, or I could give you the 15-minute version. It's up to you.
I'm having computer difficulties and didn't hear any of that.
I said I can give you a 5-minute or a 15-minute version. It's up to the committee.
What do you all think? Do we want the 15-minute version? It's 7:06.
Well, I guess I'm not sure what the answer was, but I'll give you the short version, I guess.
Sounds good.
Just start with some background. This is really a follow-up study to some work that I did for the National Seashore when I worked for them. The original study was in 2005, and the objective was to explain the chronically high fecal coliform in the Herring River mouth. The basic finding of the study was that the accumulation of fecal coliform around the dike, the highest concentrations are found in 1,000 meters above and below the dike, were due to the lack of flushing and the artificial low salinity in that area. We found the same thing in several other diked marshes on the Outer Cape. Actually, the other three that we looked at East Harbor, Patches Harbor, and Panamint River, we saw the same thing, accumulation of fecal coliform around tidal restrictions. So that was that, and that was published, and if anybody would write reprints of that, I'd be happy to share it with you. The figure in front of you, the map, shows in white, the white numbers are the number of locations of stations that I sampled in 2005. Back in last fall, year ago, the Herring River Stakeholders Committee suggested, after I presented this earlier study to them, they suggested, well, you know, it's been 15 years, maybe you should go back and see if the river's doing the same thing in terms of bacteria. And I thought that was a pretty good idea. So I presented it to the Herring River technical team and asked for their support. And they said, yes, go ahead. And so they provided funds for sample analysis, and I volunteered to do the collection and the data analysis and reporting. So that's where we are now. So anyway, this map shows the sampling. I did fewer stations, but still bracketed the whole system from High Toss Road. You see my arrow? Can you see the cursor?
Yeah.
Okay, from High Toss Road at Station 2 down to the channel between Egg Island and Great Island at my station 10. But fewer stations because I was doing this on my own and I couldn't get to all of these 9 stations at low tide. And I wanted to represent conditions, worst case conditions, which we observed in 2005 to happen at dead low water. Samples at each of these red circle stations were collected in duplicate and same field methods as before. Analysis at this time was done by Bonneville County Lab, but they used the same lab analysis, the membrane filtration method that I used in 2005. Well, I may give you a little more than I originally promised. It's important to understand that we really have 2 end members here. Scientists like to call them end members, 2 kinds of water. We have the river water, which is of course fresh, coming down Herring River. It's highly colored, but you can see straight through it. It's clear, and that's because there's not a lot of particles in it. It has a lot of dissolved organic matter, which causes the color, but it's clear. Not a lot of suspended matter, and it's high in fecal coliform. And then the other kind of water is coming from Cape Cod Bay. It's highly saline, obviously, and it has very low bacteria concentrations. It can be really turbid, as you can see in this picture. In 2005, these were the results of multiple collection dates. Each one of these traces is a different date. And in general, you can see outside of a really big rainstorm, concentrations were 200 to 400 fecal coliforms per 100 milliliters at these stations throughout the summer. Let me skip these and get to the real punchline of 2020. This graph shows, again, fecal coliform concentrations on the vertical axis. And then 2005, average 2005 concentrations are on the left here, the average 2020 concentrations observed on the right. And I've separated, I've shown mean concentrations for all stations above the river and below above the dike and below the dike. Of course, in 2005, I had a lot more observations because I was sampling more frequently and more stations. But I think you can see that something really interesting happened, something totally unexpected. I really expected the data to be pretty boring and similar to 2005, and they weren't. For some reason, there was a lot more bacteria in the river in 2020. I cannot explain that, but I think the important point here is that even though we had, on average, 3 times the bacteria concentrations coming down the river in 2020 than in 2005, the system below the estuary below the dike was still resisting these concentrations. It was somehow, probably due to continued good tidal flushing below the dike and continued high salinity, was still maintaining low concentrations, very low concentrations, well, relatively low concentrations below the dike, very similar to 2005 when we had 1/3 the concentrations of bacteria coming down the river in the summertime. So I think this is really important when you think about tidal restoration, because we have a system below the dike now that can handle high bacteria input from the river. It does this very well. It's very resistant to inputs of bacteria. Even when they're 3 times what they were in 2005, this area of protection provided by high tidal flushing and salinity should be extended way upriver with tidal restoration as the restoration proceeds. So I think that's a really interesting, important finding. Be glad to answer any questions about it. In the future, if you want me to give the full presentation, I will. I'm a little hesitant. Actually, I was a little hesitant tonight because I haven't yet presented this to the Bering River technical team who supported the project. They have a written report, but I'm supposed to present to them tomorrow, actually. So I'll be glad to take any questions.
I have a question. This is Nancy. What months were you taking the samples in again? Can you remind me?
May, July, and September. The concentrations in May were really similar to 2005, but the data on this figure that you're looking now is from the summer. It's July and September.
How do you explain the higher numbers above the dike in 2020?
I can't explain it. There's just more bacteria being shed onto the marsh surface in the river, but no, I can't. I have no explanation for that.
We have substantially less rain this year than in 2005.
That's
Might
right.
have concentrated something.
Yes, except that I intentionally sampled at least 3 days after any rain event to avoid these, this flushing that you get after major rain events.
Okay.
And there just wasn't any substantial rain event, as you know, June, July, August, and most of September. So, you can imagine that without rain, the bacteria would accumulate on the marsh surface. And then when there was a rain, it would all go flushing in. But that didn't happen within the window of the sampling for this study. So it's sort of a mystery why it was much higher. And I just don't have a good explanation for that. But I think the important point is even when it is this high, sustained this high, coming down the river, we have a system of good tidal flushing and high salinity below the dike that can handle it, that resists these inputs of higher pollution. And that's the way the system usually works in an estuary. You always get bacteria accumulation in marshes, but they're diluted and they're killed by high salinity.
Hey, John, it's Tom. Does this change anything in your eyes? Is this going to require more testing in 2021, 2022, or?
Well, actually, I did a little, after I was supposed to present this last month to the technical team, but I was sick. So I had some time on my hands, and I thought it would be interesting to look at the variation across these different stations that I monitored relative to the average for all the stations over the course of the 2005 summer. I had plenty of data to analyze in this way. And so I'm in this table, I'm comparing, for example, the observations across the whole summer for just above below High Tuss Road to the average concentration for all stations across all these dates. And then I calculate basically correlations. And one station, the idea was to try to find the best station that represents conditions across the river. So, if somebody did want to do the sampling more often, is there one station that you could use as sort of an index and save all the time and effort of sampling all these stations? And one station really stood out right here with this really high, this is a really high coefficient of correlation between station 5, just above the dike, and the average for all stations. So, you could, if you had a little bit of support, continue to sample on an annual, each year over the course of the summer and get a pretty good representation of conditions throughout the river by sampling only at station 5. Of course, I don't know why station 5 is so good. It must be related to hydrodynamics, to the mixing that goes on in this particular point in the river. And that's all fine for now, but with incremental tile restoration, that's probably going to change. But for now, as long as the the dike is in place and the valves are set where they are. This looks like a good place to resample. I don't know if there's going to be interest in among the technical team to repeat this again. We'll have to wait and see. It might be worthwhile to hold off until the year before the new structure, the bridge, is set to open, and then get background again at that point.
Okay, thanks.
Some conclusions, you can read this as well as I can read it. So I'll just leave those up and be happy to entertain any other questions you have.
Becca, I had one question. This is Martha. I guess we'd like to hear from the Shellfish Advisory Board what they think of future sampling. And as John mentioned, he is going to be presenting this to the Herring River Technical Team tomorrow. And so I think there might be some kind of discussion about future sampling, who might do it, you know, when would it be done? But I guess it'd be interesting for me to get some community feedback that I could relay back to the technical team to see, you know, what you guys think of the study, and if you would want to see future sampling done. And so that if that is something that the community and Shellfishing Advisory Board would like, that's something we could advocate for with the technical team who really controls the funds in this case.
So Martha, you're saying, do we want to see this study continued, or just are you looking at examples for things we would want sampled?
Yeah, well, I think for this particular study, you know, and maybe you just need to deliberate and think about it, digest it a little bit more. If John wants to present the full presentation at a later date, I think this is really the first time anybody has publicly seen this data and has had a chance to discuss, as John mentioned. The technical team hasn't. We've all seen the report, but we haven't had a discussion about it. But I think now that it's being presented here, and you know, it would be nice to get some kind of feedback that we could bring back to the technical team, or you know, I could tell them you're going to think about it, and we'll get back to us later. But just to get your thoughts on that for this particular fecal coliform study.
Well, I mean, it's what the state tests for to fecal coliform to determine whether we're open or closed. So I think the more information we can gather on it, the better.
John, just a thought that I had was if this didn't happen to be the year of the coronavirus, this might have something to do with the fact that there's a lot more people living here now year round and in the summertime. I don't know what the population size was, but is this because more people flushing the toilets in the river estuary? Yeah.
I really doubt it, because just about everybody around the river is on a Title V or even an old cesspool, unless they're, you know, really close to the edge of the river. Bacteria do not travel very far in Cape Cod soils. And, you know, the vast majority of systems around the river are Title Vs. And the one thing they were designed to do is to remove bacteria. So I don't think the source is you know, septic waste.
I was just going to say that the Shellfish Department has asked DMF, the Division of Marine Fisheries, to sample the Herring River CCB 12, the open part of the Herring River, to do water quality sampling as if it was always open. So I think they have to do it a minimum of 5 times a year. Because we're interested, I think that this is really key, the finding here that tidal flow is doing such an amazing job of reducing fecal coliform when the 2020 concentrations were so much higher above the dike. I think that's significant. And so I'm just wondering, we're having the, DMF do the water quality sampling even when the Herring River is closed, so that we can figure out, is there, can we have it open for longer because it doesn't pose a risk? The closed line, is that a line that at one point would move or not? That might be a taller order, but it's something that we think about. So I just wonder how any other sort of studies that the Herring River might be able to undertake to kind of support the work that we're doing with the state to try and increase access to that area. When that closes on October 31st, ostensibly it's because of, I guess, migrating waterfowl, or it's because of wildlife. It closes in the winter, not in the summer when there's more people here, as John was saying. But so I guess I'm just wondering, it would be great if we could perhaps keep it open for the month of September, or keep it open until the Chipman's Cove opens, and create a little bit more diversity in terms of openings and closings in town. But so I just don't know if there's work that Herring River might be able to undertake to support the work that we're also doing with the state, to see if we can't get a little bit more shellfishing open in that area.
This is Barbara. One thing that always perplexed me is that the DMF does their sampling and puts these open and closed lines in at high tide, when the shellfish are harvested at low tide, and the fecal coliform load is different at those tides. And I just wonder about that. And I asked DMF once, why are you sampling at high tide? And they said, because we can go out there in a boat and get a grab. But to me, it would seem that these studies would correlate better if the DMF did their studies when shellfish could be harvested rather than at high tide, or somehow correlate what they're seeing at high tide with what's being seen here in this study.
I mean, I don't know that I would highly doubt they're going to change their protocols now, just knowing. So maybe there's a way of finding some sort of correlation.
That's what I wonder.
I just want to add, before we close, is that I'm presenting this to the technical team tomorrow, and they've had the report for a while, so I expect to get, final comments from them tomorrow on the report, and can revise it really quickly. So what I'm getting at is it's probably going to be publicly available very soon, right, Martha?
Yeah, John, I think this is something we could put on our website, and we could also share it with the Shellfish Department if they want to put it on their website. But I think as long as we get sign off, essentially our peer review for this, it would be ready to go. And as you mentioned, this was undertaken at the request of this Herring River stakeholders group, because they had heard a presentation and saw John's work in 2005 and thought, well, what is it like today? So this study is in direct response to that suggestion from the stakeholders group to see what the conditions are today. So we would like as many people to see it as possible once it's ready to go.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the co-host back. I'm happy to link to the report on the Herring River. Like send that out to all of our constituents.
Yeah, and I think, if at a later date, if we want to have a meeting with the broader shellfish community, if folks are interested in seeing the big presentation, or as Barbara mentioned, maybe perhaps the Spat study, but she also mentioned a study she'd like me to address. And, we would like to get this information out to the broadest group possible. So I'd appreciate your thoughts on how to do that as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely will
it's
brainstorm
tough
with you.
virtually.
It's going to be hard to, yeah, I think that until we can have an in-person meeting, it's going to be difficult to engage the larger shellfishing community via a Zoom or something. It's just not working at all. So after when we're allowed again to meet in person, I think that would be a great thing to do.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and we'll keep updating and look for other venues to present this. And Martha will have another study. You're not ready tonight, right, Martha, for the sediment study?
Okay, so unfortunately, this was the part of the meeting where Murphy's Law kicked in for me and I lost my audio. So I had to plug in with the headphones. So I completely missed what Nancy said.
I think
The only thing I said, go
ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
Barbara.
that it would be nice to have a better venue, and then we could present these studies in more detail and get more feedback, but now it's not the time via Zoom. But Martha will be able to via Zoom at least present something soon to at least the Shellfish Advisory Board about the sediment transport, which was requested by, I'm not sure who requested it. Was it the stakeholders or the Shellfish Advisory?
Sediment study was, I think, came out of a big shell fishermen's meeting that
Okay, all
was
right.
maybe in 2017 or early 2018, I think.
All right, Martha can just tell you about how that's been expanded, even if she can't give you the results today.
Right. So I'd like to do that, and thank you. It did come out of from a meeting that we had. It was a joint meeting with the Shellfish Advisory Board and Friends of Herring River, where John Portnoy, Mark Borelli, and Kirk Bosma from the Woods Hole Group presented information, including fecal coliform. And Kirk Bosma presented a sediment tracking model that they had produced. And the feedback that we got was it didn't go far enough into the harbor, basically ended right before Egg Island. So the request was, please expand the model and show us what you have. So it has taken quite some time when the model was expanded. And so it took some time to build the model and then now populate the model with different scenarios, at different tides, different stages of restoration. And I would just say that study at long last is now finished, and it's going through sort of the QA/QC process. But and as John mentioned, we do have a meeting with the Herring River technical team tomorrow, where Kirk Bosma from Woods Hole Group will be presenting his results from this work to the technical team for the sort of the final QA/QC. And we would be very interested if you were also to have him present the results at a future meeting, which would be perhaps even the next meeting or the meeting after that for this group, or perhaps even a broader group. But this is you know, what people have been waiting for a while. But it's finally ready. It's finally mostly ready. And it's not something I would present. I think a few months ago, I presented preliminary results showing sort of modeling going back and forth. But this is something that the actual modeler, a coastal engineer, and hydrologist would present to the group. So if that's something that this group is interested in, you know, I'd be happy to try and set that up.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think we'd like to hear that.
Okay, so I guess
Hey,
I'm not really
Martha,
sure what the
it's-
schedule is. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Martha,
Sorry.
Martha, it's Tom.
Yeah.
I think what's important for our group, and then as we hand it down to the Shellfish community, is a constant set of metrics that your group and us can review monthly or quarterly or whatever, but a constant set of metrics would help us out tremendously. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. So we're all measuring the same thing. Like what Barbara presented today was very, very interesting, as well as John. And we keep the metrics set the same way. We can kind of go back to our notes, et cetera, as we move forward.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes seeing it a second time or a third time, you're like, oh boy, you know, 5 went to 20, 20 went to 5, 25 went to 10. You know, Barbara's stuff with the Spat being 12, now 6, now 14. And then, you know, somebody commented about, or Rebecca commented about, well, we had a lot of rain. We had, you know, we can, the people on the field can then say, hey, well, this is what I experienced this year out on my grant. And, you know, that you could take that and maybe that's beneficial to what you guys are doing on reasons why some of these things are happening. Make sense?
Yeah, I think so, Tom. I think that's a good point. I think, you know, and I can relay that to the group, but I'd be happy to try and schedule something for Woods Hole group. If I knew what this schedule was for this group's meeting, whether it's the next meeting or the meeting after that, but certainly sometime soon.
Well, we do meet monthly and it depends
Pretty
on
ready
the
to go.
topic.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
We can be in touch about our next agenda and figure out how we can do that. And either.
Yeah, I could send a note out to Barbara and you or John and say, hey, you know, here's what's, you know, back in the team schedule for January.
Okay, so I can relay that tomorrow to Woods Hole group that you know, this group would like to have them present something at the next meeting sometime in probably early January. Then it usually on a Wednesday, maybe.
It totally fluctuates.
No,
Okay.
it fluctuates all the
We'll
time.
try to get something set up by the end of the meeting tonight that we can get.
Okay. Okay, so we'll get that in the works. And I know we've been talking about it for a long time. So we're excited it's finally happened. And they went above and beyond what we expected. I think they did 50 different scenarios of particle fluctuation. And I think getting input from this group and the broader community would be helpful for them as well as the broader project partners and what else should we be looking at. And I don't want to take up too much more time, but I just had a couple more things to report. The Center for Coastal Studies has hired a postdoc. Her name's Katie Castagno, and she is a coastal geologist, and she's been hired to work with Mark Borelli and a man named Francesco Perry from UMass Boston to continue and enhance the work on sediment transport and flow, as well as tide monitoring and water quality in the harbor. So she's going to start full time in January, and this is a position that's being funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Service, specifically for the project. But it is her position is to enhance the understanding of sediment transport in Wellfleet Harbor and Herring River. So she does hope to connect with the Nancy, particularly you, and Nancy, I think you would enjoy meeting Francesco Perry from Italy, but also from UMass Boston. He's been working with us doing the tide monitoring stations now in conjunction with Center for Coastal Studies. So we've
Sounds
sort of
great.
moved from, we've moved from hired consultants to Center for Coastal Studies for a number of reasons, but just looking for greater collaboration. But Katie, she seems magnificent and really smart and happy to do field work and getting to know the community. And she has deep ties to the Outer Cape. So that's coming up, and that's going to be a huge effort that we would like to report more on also at a future meeting. That it's kind of in flux to see what kind of instrumentation is going to be put out based on the input from Katie and Francesco and Mark and what is currently available right now during the pandemic. Getting instruments has been extremely difficult. And lastly, I'd just like to say, as far as the project goes, we're just continuing with permitting, and we aim to file permit applications, additional permit applications early in 2021 with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection through Chapter 91 and Section 401 and the Army Corps of Engineers and Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. And then later on with the Wellfleet and Truro Conservation Commissions. And that's all I have. And thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Martha, could I get one quick question in there about the Center for Coastal Studies? That title, the survey about the tidal flow, or the work that's going on about the benthic sampling, and I seem to recall Mark saying that there was cameras now down there looking at finfish. Is that true?
I'm not sure about that. I can look that up, but I know Owen Nichols has been doing a study in Wellfleet Harbor. Actually, that was partially funded by Friends of Herring River through the Don Palladino Memorial Fellowship.
Right.
And he's updating the finfish data in Wellfleet Harbor. And so, and Owen's at the Center for Coastal Studies. So I would have to check on that.
I think
we've
that's
also contracted with the Center for Coastal Studies to update the benthic survey or the bathymetric survey in Wellfleet Harbor to improve the baseline conditions for that, to see how that might change during restoration. And the water quality monitoring continues through USGS. They do the sampling, and Center for Coastal Studies is doing the lab analysis. And the tide monitoring is being conducted formerly through Woods Hole Group and now through UMass Boston. This actually is through a group called Charybdis, which is headed by this fellow that I mentioned, Francesco Perry, who works closely with the Center for Coastal Studies. And he's basically a technical guru on the tide monitoring. So we're trying to streamline all these different sampling efforts and also making the best use of taxpayers' dollars and being cost effective. But just noting that, we would like to partner or, just work with the shellfishing community as much as possible in this effort. So if you have any suggestions on what we need to do or what I can relay to Center for Coastal Studies or USGS or the Park Service, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for coming tonight, talking to us about this. We appreciate it.
Rebecca?
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Zach.
Opportunity, yep.
Through you, Becca,
Sure.
Barbara, John, Martha, thank you. And Barbara and John, could you send your presentations for me so I can include them in the minutes?
The PowerPoints?
Yeah,
Okay,
can that come in an email?
I'll try. If not, I have a written version of the report with the graphs and everything that I could send you.
Sure,
Definitely.
great.
Yeah, I'll send it after. Let me present it to the technical team tomorrow, and then I'll free up everything.
Okay,
Definitely.
thank you.
Yes, thank you again.
Okay, well, we really appreciate the opportunity, and anytime you need an update, we're happy to
Thank you.
engage with
Thank you.
guys.
We will try to get you a date for the next meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, take care.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye.
All right. So the next thing we've got on the list is horseshoe crab discussion. And I'm still waiting on responses from the people who I emailed. So there's nothing to report there for me. Does anybody else have anything? Sounds like a nope.
Nope.
No.
All right, so then we're up to the Shellfish Department update. And there's a lot to update us on.
Yeah. So there's two things that I wanted to talk about on the agenda, but I will just add that today and yesterday we ran the buyback program that was through the county COVID relief, the Rapid Response National Sea Grant Foundation COVID relief. And it looks like, I think we've done 37. We have another 7 to do. So we've done about 30 fishermen or shellfish farmers have sold 1,111 oysters to the town for us to put at the Indian Neck recreational area. So each shellfishman is making $500. It just feels good to be able to put some money in people's pockets right before the holidays. So that's been very successful. We have another run on Tuesday, the 15th, and then we might have a few stragglers beyond that, and we'll get them into the program as well. But we have to finish it by the end of this year. And that's what our grant said. So our proposal said. And then there's the farmers market. So we still don't have complete DPH approval, but we have been working very closely with both Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, who has signed off on it, and the Mass Department of Public Health. Ryan Curley has been really helpful, just kind of helping coordinate and communicate and take the lead on some things. And Ginny Parker at the Wellfleet Shellfishermen's Association as well, just trying to help shellfishermen find a way to be able to do pre-sales. And I really am indebted to Holbrook, Oyster, and Zach, who have stepped up to be the dealer of record for the farmers market, because the way the regulations are written, shellfishermen have to sell to a dealer. They cannot sell direct. So Holbrook's stepping up. They're basically doing what partners have done for the Oyster Fest, which is they just run the product, they accept the product, they log it, they do all the reporting, all the down to all the temperature guidelines, and then they will deliver it back on the morning of the farmer's market to each individual shellfisherman to then sell direct. So they're taking a very small processing fee, just like they do at the Oyster Fest. It's 5 cents an oyster, and we're still working on other shellfish if people so desire. They are going to be the sponsor of sorts for any wild shellfishermen that want to partake, so that's great. Farmers can do their own thing because we are allowed, at least as far as oysters are going, to resubmerge if the product doesn't get sold, but we can't do that with a wild product. It's a, you know, it's a public resource. So we'll be working, the wild shellfishermen will be working directly in tandem with Holbrook. And if there's anybody who's interested at all that's watching this later, by all means, call the department and let us know that you're interested, and we will explain everything in detail and hook you up with who you need to be connected with to make it happen. The department number is 508-349-0325. Because we're asking all the farmers to, all the shellfishermen to keep their product on ice, Kurt Felix has graciously agreed to let shellfishermen use his indoor ice maker at his Mosquito Squad property in on Route 6. So he has an approved ice machine in there. Meals on Wheels works in there. So we have an approved source of ice, which is great. And the way it's going to run is that shellfishermen will take pre-orders, and then basically the farmers market becomes a pickup site for those orders, much like the sea scallopers have been doing from their vessels, and the Buy Fresh Buy Local Cape Cod Seafood Facebook page organized all through the spring and summer, where you would go to the boat and buy. But you advance order. So you have to get your order in advance, and then you can either pay in advance or pay on site. But basically the shellfisherman knows how much product to bring to each market. It's going to start off slowly, and we hope to build. And we just ask people to be flexible as we kind of deal with some of the bumps in the road that are likely to happen. But it's you know, I'm really amazed at the support, both from the shellfishing community, that people are really interested in it. We had about 10, 12 people show up to the meeting last week, and I've had many more call and have conversations on the phone about it. And then today, when Wellfleet Shellfishermen's Association started to promote the sales online, just the explosion and outpouring of support on social media was really encouraging. So I think we're on to something here. I think it'll probably get, you know, take a little while to really get up and running, but I feel good about it. And I'd like Zach to share anything that I've forgotten. And then if you have any questions, the select board did ask, you know, did direct me when I came up with this idea at a meeting about a month ago, you know, to take it on and work on it. But they also really wanted to hear your feedback. So I'd like to be able to say that, you know, we did discuss it here in an open meeting. Zach, did I forget anything?
Yeah, I think you covered it. You know, it's pretty basic. Run it through the protocol so that it's traceable, and get it down there. It's I think it has a lot of potential if it catches on, for sure. And we'll see what kind of bumps there are in the road. But Nancy's put in a lot of work to smooth that all over, so it should. I don't foresee any real problems for this first run, and we'll see how it goes. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I think it sounds great, and it's a great idea, and it's gonna work out really well. Have you had a lot of interest in it? Did you say?
There's a lot of people who, like right now, this week, it was like, you know, kind of crunch time. I think it was too short notice for most people to really get it organized. But I think people are thinking about next Saturday, the 19th, and, you know, maybe even the one between Christmas and New Year's. So we're just kind of take it as it goes. If we don't have interest, we can certainly get the word out there. You know, no market this weekend. But we do have a story coming out in the Cape Cod Times, one in the Provincetown Independent and one in the Provincetown Banner. So, you know, the word is going to get out there. Right now, the only place that I really have to drive people for sales is to the Wellfleet Shellfishermen's Association website. So I'm hoping that anybody who is interested, I mean, they have totally come to the table to help build little mini profiles and an online way of ordering to make it easy. So I think at least in the beginning, if people are feeling a little uncertain about how to get out there and make the sales directly, then I think they're providing an amazing service and platform for people. And it's also great to have, frankly, one place to tell people to go. I think we'll be really successful like that. So I hope that, it turns into a successful partnership.
So logistically, Nancy, tell me how it's going to work. I mean, so it's like 10 to 12. Is that the idea on Saturday?
It's 12 to 2 on Saturdays. You would have put in your order in advance. You come down to the pier. We have signage. We have a COVID officer, is Ryan Curley. He's on the call right now. And so he'll he'll know where everybody is. He'll direct people in. You don't get out of your car right now because we're in such, we just are taking a step back on Sunday for COVID. So in terms of phases, so people will drive up to their vendor. Everybody will be masked. The vendor will take their payment through the car window, and then they will get the shellfish from out of their cooler with ice. The person will pop the trunk. The person needs to have a cooler with ice in their trunk. The shellfisherman puts that into their trunk and they drive away happy.
So you just drive down to the pier like you were going to go any other day to park to get on a boat. Is that the idea?
Yes, I mean, we'll have it marked off. The DPW is helping do the layout down there with stanchions and stuff so that we can direct people in a basically a horseshoe to kind of go in one end and out the other side. But the important thing is to for the beginning of this market and the way that we have to run it now because of COVID, it's buy in advance and drive it in your car. I'm not saying, I mean, we're planning on having this run from 12 to 2 on Saturdays until May 1st. May 1st will be the last market. And maybe if things get better with COVID and if things start to take off, there might be a little bit of walking around at some point, like a regular farmer's market, but we're just going to take this one step at a time.
Okay, so for the time being, it looks like, I mean, I saw the Wellfleet Shellfishermen's Association site. Is that what you're doing? You're buying it through there? They're going to have your name and they're going to tell you where to go when you drive down the pier. Is that right? Starting the 19th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starting this Saturday, the 12th.
It is starting this Saturday. All right.
Yep. There probably won't be a ton. There'll probably be a few choice, dedicated, committed individuals doing it. So that's, you just put, and at some point, it might be that people get it together and they're going to want to do all their own promotion and marketing through their Facebook pages or whatnot. So there's no it has to happen this way. This is a brand new initiative. It's the first one of its kind. So anybody who wants to take some initiative and roll up their sleeves and do something a little different, this will definitely change. The way it will look will change over time. And I think that's a good thing. The entrepreneurial spirit of Wellfleet will be upheld, I'm sure.
Look forward to it.
Me too.
Thank you for all your work on it.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. We're still doing all our other jobs too. I'm just working a lot more. I'm not slacking off except for my monthly reports. I'm behind on those. But yeah, everything else, I mean, propagation wise, Johnny's still keeping tabs on the grant and distributing, our seed oysters around. We bought clams that we got, I think we got 3 batches of quahogs this year. They came late as they did for a lot of people, but I know we got them in the ground in both August and September. So we have exhausted our propagation budget for the year with seed, for the 2020 season. So we're in good shape propagation wise too.
Great.
All right, so the next thing was about permits. So I know I already brought this to you and I know that everybody, because of COVID, wanted to keep permit prices the same. As I went through the budget process, I learned from Suzanne Thomas that because of COVID, we moved to an online ordering system for shellfishing permits. And the beach department basically carried the credit card fees for the shellfish permit sales. They have so far this year, but I don't really think it's fair for the beach department to be paying for the credit card processing fees for shellfishing permits. In addition, because of COVID, our best bet is to continue doing online sales. We are making accommodations where necessary. Jeannie's coming to our office on Wednesdays from 9 to noon to sell in person for people who don't have internet access or they don't have a printer, or whatever it might be. So we're doing that. And also people can make an appointment with her and do it in town hall, but it's hard with COVID. And I think that the bulk of our permits are going to be sold online. So I'm just going to look at my notes here for a second. In 2019, which is the only year that I have full data for, we sold 1,043 permits totaling $88,110. So 3% of that was $2,643.30, which came out to about $2.50 a permit. So I was just wondering if we could look at, it's kind of hard to do a $2.50 increase, but maybe we look at just a minimal $5 increase to the permit fees to make sure that we are covering any increase in sales that we might have. Just to give it a round number to do an increase this year so that anything that's been sold to date is just going to have been sold to date. But if we can, if you make this recommendation and then the select board approves it, then those could go into effect immediately and we could start recouping some of the fees that are going to come out of something that wasn't budgeted for by my department, and I don't feel like the beach department should have to cover.
Nance, is the beach department going to charge an extra visa fee next year?
Everybody, so it's the software that sells it, and the software, in order to get that credit card service, the town pays a 3% credit card fee for every permit that's sold or sticker.
Okay.
Combination dump, combination transfer station, beach stickers, all of those. Anything that's done with a credit card transaction online, there is a 3% fee. So I didn't know this when I came to you before, and I just thought I need to be fiscally responsible and present it to you for consideration.
So 2 years down the road, when people start coming into the town hall to buy their permits and want to just cough up the cash, do they get a $5 discount?
I would not say that that would be an option. I also think that there's a small group of people that are, they want to do it in person, or they want to, they don't have the ability. But the most people were asking for this a long time ago. And most people, I think, like to do it from the comfort of their own home. I certainly like to pay my bills online and not go to the post office with a check.
As much as I hate the idea of raising the fee right now, $5 is a reasonable amount for a fee that has to be paid by the town otherwise.
Are we going to do $5 if we did decide to do it? Is it going to be $5 across the board, or depending upon, is it going to be variable depending upon the permit cost?
At the
For
transaction,
resident, non-resident type of thing, recreational, commercial.
I did not think about that as an option. I just thought it was fair to do it across the board, but I can, if we want to talk that through, what it would look like, that would be helpful.
I think $5 is reasonable. I mean, the convenience, you can call it administrative fee, Nance. Just be consistent with the other departments. It would be nice when I ordered my transfer station beach sticker, I could get my recreational permit.
You can do it all at once.
All at
Yes,
once
you
would be
can.
great. And, the convenience of it is, not having to go into town and not have to drive. Like you said, do it from your living room. I have no problem with $5.
You do have to go pick it up. Okay, that is, yeah, you do have to go pick it up. Just like with your beach sticker, you went to the beach sticker office and you picked it up. So right now
No,
we're
mine
putting them
got-
in the
mine
slot
got-
behind town hall.
Mine got mailed to me.
Well, we
I
have that
ordered it early.
option to do mail in, but if you mail it in, then you're not doing it online. And you have to enclose a self-addressed stamped envelope.
Oh, maybe that's what I did. Okay.
I
I
gotta
don't
say,
know, yeah.
mailing, I don't know. I mean, it's very convenient to get it mailed to you, for sure. But it
Yeah.
seems to me then you got a problem with people scamming the system and getting things they're not supposed to get, in the mail. I mean, I'm just being paranoid here, but I'm just thinking that people that weren't living here could get a sticker mailed to get their permit mailed to Eastham.
No, I mean, we check everything. Right now, there's a 48-hour or a 2 business day waiting period because we have to check and make sure, if you're getting a resident permit, do you actually own property here? Are you a taxpayer? Are you a renter? Are you a tenant? And for commercial permits, are you officially domiciled here? Have you been here for a full year? So it's definitely, we check every single one. Between myself and Jeannie Mac, we check everyone.
Well, then, okay, we should be doing these by mail then. Instead of, especially with COVID, why not do it?
So the software doesn't issue you the permit the minute that you hit your credit card. It puts it into a queue, which we then go in and approve or not approve. Your credit card isn't actually charged until we approve it, and we have 7 days. The software allows us 7 days, but we tell people that we do it within 48 hours.
But what's that got to do with whether you go pick up the sticker at the Speed Shack or if you get it mailed to you?
Oh, I
In
guess
other words, I want to eliminate the trip to the Beach Shack.
then just do it by mail.
Okay, I didn't know that was an option.
Yep, it
You
was
can
in my
get-
crier. It was in my
Oh,
recreational.
all right.
shellfish.
Well, there you go.
The $5 seems reasonable. I don't see a problem with it. So it'd be $315 instead of $310. Yeah.
If you buy it after the select board say yes, and get a run on it now.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna order it. I got it up.
Order it tonight.
Yeah.
Everybody order
I mean,
away.
for $5, yeah. I mean, I really hesitate raising the fees, but
I know.
like you said, with the credit card processing fee, I think it's okay. I've noticed like some restaurants are starting to do that. They pass on the processing fee now rather than absorbing it. But yeah.
Well, I just didn't, and I haven't budgeted it, and this year doesn't end until June 30th.
Yeah, I think it's pretty negligible. Like, I don't know what the last raise was, like how much it went up, but I'm sure it was more than 5. Like, did it go up $10 one time?
I had that. I want to say, because I just did those new categories.
Yeah, what would it look like if it was just 3% on each fee? I don't have the fee sheet in front of me. Just wondering if it would just be.
I think that if that was going to be an option, Suzanne would have talked to me about it. Let me just look at my notes with her again.
Okay.
Well, so that means if you get a commercial permit and it's $300 just to make it round, then you're paying. Then it's the credit card fee's $9.
It's like a lot.
Say that again.
Well,
Sorry, I was reading my notes.
So the reason I'm thinking, if you get a commercial license, which is a $300 license, just to make it easy, 3% of $300 is $9. So you're getting a break, whereas the people that are getting a recreational permit, that's
Or,
$50. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah,
it's
like
not
the
equitable.
the
It's not-
$20 senior resident would now be 25.
Mhm.
Yep.
So the bottom line is it's not equitable across the board, percentage wise.
Agreed.
Right, we just do.
I mean, if you want me to do 3% for each different permit, I can go back and do that.
You could do that, or you could just do something simple like $5 for recreational resident, $10 for commercial resident. I don't, you know, it's a handling charge. But
Yeah,
then
but it's
you're-
still unfair to the
then you're
recreational
charging the
resident.
commercial, you're charging the commercial people $9. However, that is technically the credit card fee. If you're basing it on the credit card fee, that's the fee, you know?
Well, I was looking at it more as like, I'm gonna budget a certain amount next year in the, you know, I'm looking at it as overall.
Yeah,
I
I
wasn't-
guess you're right. I mean, there's a lot fewer commercial permits, I think, than there are residential permits. So, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure out what that impact would be. And, you know, I've got no problem raising it $5 across the board. That's fine.
Why don't we make a motion that says, why don't we say something like this, that we agree to raise the fees $5, or if the software package can do it, you know, charge the 3% Visa charge. If, you know, I think it should be simple during this time. I mean, you're getting a lot of convenience here.
Yeah. I mean, I think I looked through my notes with Suzanne and she didn't say that was an option, and she can't just change it for me, right? Because they all use the same system and Rec is using it now too. So I don't think we're going to be able to change an interface just for Shellfish permits that allows, Becca's having internet issues, that allows just Shellfish permits to charge 3%. It's just, it can't happen.
Well, I don't know who the town bought the software package from, but that's Nance, being in technology all my life, that's not that difficult to do. The
Okay, but
software
I'm just
programmer-
saying,
The software program goes in there and says, you know, boom, boom, here's the charge.
okay, but then it can't just be for ours. It would have to be
No,
for
no.
everybody. Yeah,
I asked you.
I'm just
but I
saying that
asked
there's
you-
like 4 different departments using it, so it would have to be
I-
for 4 different departments.
Yeah, but I asked you earlier, I assume I assume all the departments are doing the same. No?
Yeah, I mean, Beach is the one who's been covering me, so.
Yeah, so they got it in the program. They don't sit there and charge you $60 for a beach sticker and.
She
transfer
budgeted
station
for
sticker,
it
and
because she
somebody goes,
knew.
No, I know
Okay,
that, but
sorry.
what comes back to the person buying it? That's what I'm saying. I mean, say they're doing all the work, and at the end, if the software programmer programs it where everybody gets charged 3%, then you just do the arithmetic at the end. She could basically said, I sold 1,000 resident, you know, beach stickers or shellfishing passes, and, you know, just do the arithmetic, and then they, you know, split it out in your budgets. I agree that we should charge, you know, whatever
Yeah.
is easier, you know, $5 or 3%, if you can get the program to make the change.
Okay, so I could go back to her and then we could do it at a January meeting or something. I could ask her about that. I was looking for my phone to see if I could text her, but it's, you know, it would be a conversation with the software developer, not just with Suzanne.
Yeah.
Sounds like it would be worth a questioning at least.
Then per John's, what John's saying, then we're consistent with everybody. If you're paying $20 because you're a senior, then you're gonna get charged X, and if you're non-resident summer pass, you're gonna get charged 60, whatever it was. and-
Yeah, I mean,
Buck 80.
I've got no problem. It's just it's strictly a software problem. Is if you want to just say all the permit fees are staying the same except for we're including a credit card charge now of 3%. So everybody's price would be posted, 25 plus the 3%, just like you get when you get an itemized bill for tax. Here's the tax, here's a 3% credit card fee.
Right, the only thing I was saying is that you probably not gonna be able to just do it for Shellfish. So I just want to make sure that I speak with Suzanne, Mark Vincent, Becky Goldberg, and then see if the software developer
Yeah.
can. Like, it's not really a technology
That's
problem,
fair.
but I just, I can't make a decision like that because it's not just me.
Right.
And the software serves all of us, so it's gonna have to be the same for all of us.
Well, maybe they've encountered the same question.
Yeah, I'll ask.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. And that looks like the last thing on our agenda for tonight.
Wow.
Next meeting?
Anyone have a tide chart for next month?
I can pull one up, hold on. Okay. All right, let's see, January 2021. So we're looking to do we like 6:30, right?
Yes.
In the evening?
Yeah, that's
So I
perfect.
will look for, the whole first week is good.
So maybe the 5th or the 6th. We're gonna do Wednesday. No, wait. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that looks like the 6th.
That works for me.
Wednesday the 6th at 6:30.
Sounds good.
Wednesday, the 6th at 6:30.
Sounds good.
Should we just immediately somebody email Martha and Barbara?
It's probably the best option.
I got-
Oh, we're on the agenda.
I got Barbara's email. I don't know if I have Martha's, but I can send them a quick note. I at least get it to Barbara.
Yeah, that's great. So Wednesday, January 6th at 6:30.
Yep,
Thank you.
I'll do that. Rebecca.
Delegate these things. All right. See if I can get my video to work. Sort of. All right. Okay. Anything else? Nope. All right. We are adjourned at 8:16.
All right,
Becca.
terrific. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for the good feedback. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks for all the work. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.